So weight distribution. This is kind of a follow-up to the balance discussion, and I'm going to say that, in my opinion, the weight distribution of your craft matters much, much more than the actual weight of the craft. What I mean by that is that being lighter is, of course, better, but having a good weight distribution is what's going to give you a really good flight feel and flight performance. So let's start off with the general weight distribution of any given craft. You're going to have your center weight, which is going to be your battery and electronics, which the electronics isn't much, but the battery is the main mass. Then you're going to have your motor weight. Your motors, motor screws, prop nuts, and props are going to be the main weight of this craft. So this one that I'm holding here, this motor is 31 grams. The screws are going to give you another, I don't know, gram probably. The prop nuts are another half gram, and the props that I use are 5 grams. So now you're looking at a 37, 38 gram corner of the quad. That's kind of a significant number. That's why we're so crucial about our motor weight. If you're looking for really high performance, really high agility, you can't really consider a motor that's more than about 28 grams. That's really the breaking point. Once you start getting bigger than that, it starts getting really sloshy and it feels like you're flying like a Mercedes, some big car. Anyways, so the reason why this is so important is because as you're coming out of a turn, or as you're going to give it control inputs or do something, the rotational mass is what's most important. So the quad has to overcome the rotational mass of having all this weight at these corners. Yes, okay, the motors are making 1,400 grams of power, whatever. It still has to overcome this weight. It still has the inertia of having a mass at the end of this arm to start that roll, to stop that quick spin, to do that quick turn. That's the reason why we want to have really light corners on the quad. If you fly a quad that has 20 gram motors with a really lightweight prop, you're going to feel like it's super agile. That's why when you pick up a 3-inch and the quad is physically smaller, it just feels like awesome. You can go so nimble, you can fly through anything. It's because not only is the rotational mass at the end of the corners less, the arms are shorter, so the actual lever of having the weight on the end of the arm is less. So that's that discussion. The other thing is that the center of gravity has to be as tight as possible. And this is really a battle between practicality and actual flight performance. The reason why I go with the bottom battery is because I can't deal with chopping up my battery leads anymore. So I only run the bottom battery for acro, for everything. But a top battery is going to give you much more centralized center of gravity, and it's going to give you a better flight performance because the CG is right at the prop plane, prop level, similar to the last discussion. So the next thing is I'm going to talk about these little shoes. Once again, a discussion between practicality and actual flight performance. These things are awesome because they really do, prevent you from destroying the corner of your frame. But, they add about, I think this weighs about 0.75 to 1 gram. So it's adding a gram to the corner of the quad. While it doesn't seem like much, it really does kill your flight performance a little bit. Not only that, it also blocks some thrust, so whatever. So the key here is rotational mass. You want to reduce your rotational mass. That being said, the quad weight has a lot to do with that also, and that's going to be my next discussion about superlight frames or superlight setups versus regular setups. But basically, you want to have the tightest center of gravity. The best center of gravity would be to have the battery inside the middle here, but again, that's not practical because in a crash, your frame is going to take all that battery weight, the inertia of that battery hitting something, so it's going to probably be damaged much easier. In this setup that I have here, the battery can go flying and it can dissipate so much energy. So that's that. The next bit of weight distribution I'm going to discuss is the actual prop. People don't really realize that this weight distribution of rotational mass has just as much to do with the prop as it does with the quad itself. I have all these props lined up here, this array of props. I'm going to put these 4 in their own class. Then I'm going to put this one, and then I'm going to put this one. So the way I've organized these props here, that's pretty much their weight. This prop, which is the original HQ 5x4x3, is going to be still the best feeling prop in the air, and that's because it's the lightest. Now that's not the only thing to discuss. This prop is only 1 gram more. These props are in the 5.5 to 7 gram range. So what that means is that, let's say this prop. This prop is a very popular prop. I don't think it's a very good prop, but it's a popular prop. It does give you a lot of speed. It does weigh about 6 grams, 5 something, I don't know. It's heavier. It's heavier than the other two. And that's fine, except that when you put this on a motor, the motor has to deal with all the weight of this blade. So it's like swinging a bat and then trying to stop the bat from swinging. That's what the motor is trying to do. When it's trying to stop the blade or slow down the blade or speed up the blade, it has to deal with all this mass at the end of this blade. So that's why this prop just feels slippery to me in the air. It's hard to really explain it, but it just feels slippery. It feels like I don't have that immediacy of control. You really have to put it on a really big, beefy motor to get that fine control that you get with like something like this blade. So what the Racecraft guys did is that they tried to mitigate that kind of issue and make the prop really, really light at the ends. So the weight distribution of the prop is coming into play here. While this prop has kind of like a big meaty blade all the way through, this prop has all the meat in the center and the ends are much lighter. So it's much easier for the motor to manage the weight of the prop and deal with the transition times of speeding up and slowing down. This is the new DYS prop. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm predicting that I'm already not going to like it because it's actually the heaviest prop here. This is the heaviest. I mean, it's going to be the most durable. It's going to hack through a freaking branch, but it's the heaviest prop here, and it's about the same. I feel like it's about the same weight as this prop on the ends. So I feel like it's going to be really slippery in the air, and it'll have good punch, but it's not going to have a great top speed. It's 42 pitch. I don't really know. I'm not really thrilled about it, but we'll try it and give it a shot. I'm predicting I won't like it though. That's the same reason why I'm not so really crazy about the new HQ blade, because it's similar to this blade. It has that same kind of slippery quality in the air. These are fine props, and if you like them, that's fine. It's your flying style. But for me and for general kind of trying to be a little bit scientific here, not really that fantastic in terms of transition time, performance, and the way the motor can manage the weight. The Cyclone blade is a little bit of an exception, and the reason is because it's just a little bit lighter than that class of prop, just a little bit, just a hair, and the weight distribution of the prop is more right here in the center. So the ends are a little bit lighter, similar to the Racecraft blade. So it still feels like when you fly this prop, the first thing you think of is, damn, that prop is sharp. It's really sharp, like a crisp prop. So what you're feeling is the motor can just barely, if it's like a 2206 blade, it can like bring it around and stop it where it needs to and push it up when it needs to. So that's why it feels really crisp, because the motor is getting a really crisp feel for it. At least that's my interpretation of it. Still, this prop is going to be the best in terms of performance on the motor, because it is the lightest blade by far, and it still has that weight distribution where it's lighter at the end of the prop. So that's why this blade is still preferred by so many people. And the quad blade version of it it's the same. It just has more grip on the air because it's got more disc area, and that's the other trade-off here. All these props up here have more disc area on the air that they're trying to push, whereas these two props have a less disc area. So if you increase the disc area, you generally have more grip on the air and you have more control. So these props are really big and heavy, and they're trying to get more control by having such a big wide disc area on the air. My interpretation as best I know it. So that's weight distribution, and have at it as you will. Ask any questions. I'm happy to answer. I don't really know everything about what I'm talking about, but just things I've learned over the 1 year that I've been doing all this.